So, if you have been in touch on the horror scene on YouTube, on the gaming channels, of course, you will find out that a game that a lot of YouTubers play as an horror game is Fears to Fathom. Now, I think that this game is one of the most overrated games of all time, and I do have my reasons for thinking that. It quite doesn't make sense for the game to be so played by the YouTubers because Fears to Fathom, firstly, I don't even feel like it feels like a horror game. The Fears to Fathom, like the franchise as a whole, relies on loud noises and very little tension or build up, which is actually very, very disturbing to see on how the state of horror games as a whole has fallen this low. Because the Fears to Fathom, like the game starts, they tell you that it's a real story, right? Like it's a real story. And I don't quite believe that. I believe that the first game had the real story. The other games, definitely a real story. At most, I'd say that it's a story that they have greatly exaggerated for the enjoyment of the player, of course. But I don't think they're real stories, except the first one. The first one, meh, believable. It is believable. But the other ones, absolute trash. And it starts, you have to do some chores around the house, and you do all these chores and whatever, and you waste your time with the chores, and it keeps continuing and expanding into more chores. And then there is the classic jump scare, which isn't really even a jump scare to be honest. The jump scare consists of a guy blocking your door and just blasting a loud noise, and that's the whole jump scare for the first part. And they do that, and you might get spooked for a bit, but it really, really isn't scary because there is no point to the set jump scare. Then the game expands after the jump scare, and it expands to introducing our villain, which is most of the time just a generic, no face, no design character, and it really, really doesn't make sense. But let's leave the horror aspect apart, okay? The gameplay. The gameplay on this game is very repetitive. It's so repetitive that every game almost feels the same, and they reuse a lot of content. Now, from a business perspective, I get why they reuse the same content, of course. It's easier, and they are an indie studio, which is the only thing that I think keeps them alive. Because if the studio was bigger, I don't think the games would get as much traction, of course. But they use, like I said, they use the same content, they use the same formula, and the last game, which I forgot the name of, that's how little I care about the games, but the last game that got introduced had a co-op, and I saw YouTube videos of it. I did not buy the game. One will never buy a Future Fathom game. I think the games are, like I said, absolutely trash. But I saw a video, and it was Joe Bartolozzi playing the set game, and it starts, and the game starts with a moving section. You gotta get boxes and move them. Very cool. A waste of 10 minutes over there as a gameplay loop. You put them in the car and then they start driving. And in the first, and I kid you not, in the first 5 minutes of the driving, boom, they get stuck and they get soft locked out of the game. Cool. The game just dropped. You can forgive that part, right? And you can wait and wait for the updates, of course. So let's forgive him. They go on a road and they get a secret ending there. Not a secret, I just guess it's the other ending, normal ending. And after that, the game soft locks like 5 more times. And at that point, even me as a watcher was getting bored out of my mind. I don't even know what the guy playing it could have felt like. They get soft locked a lot of times, and the chase scene, sequence, whatever, was really poorly done because you never knew where you had to go, so it didn't make much sense. But they do finish the game. They had a lot of negative negative things to say about it, and I respect it. I have not watched other guys play it, but I bet that the other guys, YouTubers covering the game, will be glazing over it because in the studio, the game's very good and all that. But they try to do something new for this game at least. They try to do a co-op system, which is, I mean, respectable, I guess. But these aren't the only issues on the game. The dialogue is completely trash. The dialogue is very poor. The dialogue is very bad, and it makes the game lose a lot of its feel to it, right? Like you're supposed to be scared, but the dialogue doesn't reflect that. I mean, at the end of the last game, like the one I said, they were in the back of like a truck, of course, and they were locked in, and you're not supposed to do or make any noise in the said truck. And there was a couple there, and they're like, "Oh my God, I love you," while the killer was actively hunting for them and was very close to them. What's the point of that? I I don't care about the relationship of them at that set point, right? I do not care about that because that's not what I'm playing the game for. I'm playing the game for to have that uh, horror feel to it. Well, the guys who are playing it, like I said, I will never buy this at game. But yeah, there was another thing that I have to point out. Then of course we have the voice acting, which actually felt like AI, bro. I feel like even putting me as a voice actor, I probably could do more and could do a better job of giving it that horror feel. The voice acting, very poorly done. Even though I sound like a Slavic Russian, I could probably give it a better feel, a better horror feel. Then the endings are like very, very poorly done. The ending consists of text across the screen. It consists of text telling you their story. Like at least try to make a cutscene for it, bro. Like the games are cheap. I, I was gonna say aren't cheap, but they are cheap, kinda cheap because it's like $10, I think $11 for at max 2 hours of gameplay, full of bugs, glitches, etc. 2 hours of very painful gameplay of mostly walking around. So that's that. It's 2 hours for $10, and I'd rather watch a movie to be honest. I'd rather go to a cinema and watch a movie than play the game for 2 hours. But I think why the game is so popular isn't because it's good, right? I think that the reason that the game is so popular is because YouTubers cover it a lot. Every YouTuber, when a new game of the said franchise drops, they all cover it. I didn't see much critical cover it this time around, but like we had Jinxie that usually doesn't cover horror games, Queso, Joe, some other YouTubers because I'm not that in touch, but all these guys were covering the said game and they're all giving it relevancy, of course, so more people buy the game. But I think the hype is what carries this game because the gameplay isn't very good. It's the hype and the fact that they are in the studio, so people cut slack on them because, like I said, if this was a big studio dropping this game, I think everyone collectively would actually trash on them for dropping such poor quality, bug-infested games with poor dialogue, repeated story, repeated assets, and I repeated game loop process and everything else. They repeat everything. There is a driving sequence, a moving sequence, a chase sequence, uh, a chore sequence. These are all the sequences, and you can see that that's actually the game for most of the time, right? Only one thing, like I said, was the better game of them all. One was the best game, I think. Then the quality started to dip and dip and dip further down, and they just hide behind the fact that they are in the studio, and they hide behind the fact that the stories are real, which, like I said, either greatly exaggerated or actually fake. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a bit about that because I really think that the games overall are very overrated and they do not deserve the amount of hype that they have. And I guess if these type of games, which I would consider this franchise absolute flop, if this type of games interest you, then it's cool, of course. You can enjoy whatever you want. But in my opinion, these games should not have the coverage they have, and the said YouTubers actually glazing the game, except Joe. I don't think that he had really good thought about the game. I think he really hated it. But the other YouTubers that glaze the game, please at least be truthful to the audience when talking about this game.